Hello again, it's Linda Ockwell-Jenner here, co-founder of the Small Business Trinity Network. And here we are again, Steve Bentley, Northern River Financial, and myself. And we're going to be carrying on with some small biz perspectives, aren't we, Steve?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So would you believe that these videos are proving very successful, very popular? And we talked a couple of weeks ago about doing the topic whether you need a business plan or not, right?
Yes.
Now, as you know, Steve, I've told you this before, I'm a bad girl. I never had a business plan when I started my first business. But then I learned the lesson. It's like a roadmap, isn't it, really?
Do you know the statistic for people with business plans is probably over 80% of businesses do not have a business plan?
Are you joking?
Certainly starting, very, very few have a business plan because conceptually they don't know what it is and what it should include. Yeah. So they try to just go forward and say they're going to do something at some point, but they never get around to it. And it's such an important concept of business.
Yeah. Well, I guess in my case, I was passionate. I knew what I wanted to do and I did it. But then down the line, I thought to myself, well, what kind of budget do I have? Mm-hmm. So I kind of started making a business plan, 5-year plan, short and long-term goals. What would be the first thing that you want us to start off with if we're going to make a business plan?
I think when you start to get into numbers, you start to get into longer term planning, that's sort of reaching out a little bit because everybody thinks a business plan is just about the numbers, but it's not. It's like a roadmap. You have to know where you're starting and where you want to go to. So the first thing you really have to do is identify your organization. What kind of product do you sell? Where do you sell it? How do you define your clients? What are the different resources you have? And really try and create a summary of all of those intricate components of your business. Because until you self-identify, it's hard to do anything in terms of planning.
But I do know there are a lot of business owners look at that list and go, Steve, does that mean I have to do a lot of research? Do I have to research my target market and how to build a brand? And I guess it turns a lot of people off, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but I think that's the starting point because then you're going to carve down into some of the things you just talked about, such as your target market, such as identifying who your client is, like knowing who your competition is. And then we always then work down into the marketing and the financial side of planning, mm-hmm. But you really need to get a grounding in terms of, what kind of business you're in, who you're trying to attract as clients, how do you reach them, how do you deal with the competition in your marketplace? Because if you don't really understand the core aspects mm-hmm. of your business, it's hard to do anything further.
You see, you're making it sound like a lot of hard work, which is probably why I didn't do it in the first place. So can we make it a bit simpler for the first, somebody who's just starting a small business for the first time? How can we simplify it? How can we make it not easier, but can you have a starter one that's kind of smaller than a big one?
Yeah, I think people think of it as a big, big project, and it's not something you're going to sit down and just bang out in an afternoon, right? I think you need to conceptually start with a small plan.
Okay.
And really just try to identify some of those concepts we talked about. But it's not that you have to do it immediately.
You don't have to do it all at once.
No, because I think you have to learn, you have to take time, you have to experience. You will do a little bit of research. You need to understand why a client's coming to my location. What's my competition doing differently? But that is something that you're not going to do very quickly. That's something you will do over time. But you got to start with a small concept and then build on it.
I think the other thing is as well, financial, the budget and everything. So you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. And I read an article today where this guy got a successful business now, overestimated how much money he'd make, how much mm-hmm. revenue and all mm-hmm. the rest of it. So, you've got to think to yourself, you're going to have a home office with very little, to pay out. Are you going to have a storefront? Because then you've got to go into the financials deeper and you've got to have a financial plan to offer to the bank. Now, would that be after you've researched your target market and know all your
Yeah, exactly. I think the understanding is that you have to understand that you need money, yes, but you have to know how to wisely find that asset and also how to use it. And we know with ourselves, people go out and spend money on marketing, for example, when they don't even really know what they're marketing to, right? So I think it's always important, and even from the financial planning side, it can get very intricate. And when you start talking about a bank, you don't really need to go there yet because that's only when you want to go and try and attract financing and loan and that kind of thing. So, but you still need to know what you're bringing in and you need to control your expenses. I mean, it's just like a home budget, right? You know how much money you come home, you got bills, you got bank statements, you've got, paychecks coming in, you've got all these numbers coming from different directions, but you need to identify where is that money coming from and how am I wisely going to spend it. And the problem with smaller businesses when they're integrated with their families is using family assets to put into the business and not really watching and keeping
I think that's a little bit of it. And I always get worried when somebody says, well, I haven't got a business bank account. I don't care how small your business is, get a business banking account. And some of them, there are no charges, there are no monthly charges, I believe, but go out and talk to the different businesses. What about like looking at equipment that you need, like, you know, nice laptop, nice phones? That should be part of the business plan, surely, again.
Of course, but again, we don't have to start with a Cadillac of products, right?
Nope.
I think everybody thinks, you know, I got to go buy this and that. You know what? You have to be frugal because your business will take a while to actually get traction. And if people go out and buy all this nice shiny equipment, well, money's got to come in to pay for it, right? So people got to try and be spendthrifts. They got to be frugal. They got to be very careful how they're spending their money. But they also have to realize if they're in a business that requires capital to be input into the business, such as equipment, well, how do you do it wisely? How do you do it as inexpensively as possible?
I would go and ask other businesses who've been there and done it and make a list of my needs. The other thing is, I say, it takes time to build a business, and I think a lot of business owners get really disappointed. Even if they've made a business plan and they're not making money within the first year, they get disappointed, don't they? And I think, well, then they forget that the business plan can be changed. It's like a roadmap, isn't it? You can change
I think
the
there's two components. People think a business plan is just identifying the product, your customer, where's my revenue coming from, how am I spending money. The bigger part of it is knowing how you're going to bring clients in the door, right? If it's a retail shop, or how do you get customers? And you talked about the concept of looking at what other people are doing, right? I think a lot of businesses fail to realize that one of the most important assets they have is the ability to find out what other people in their industry
and they are doing, competitors, but they're not scary.
Finding out what they're doing, what do they do that's different, what can you do to improve on what maybe they're doing, or maybe finding your niche in that market. But look for that competitive analysis. I think it's important to reach out, even talk to customers. Why do they like dealing with you? Why are you going and dealing with this company instead of this company, right? Those are all things you need to do that fact finding. So everybody thinks there's a business plan, there's a financial plan, and a marketing plan. Well, sure. But in the interim, I think you need to understand, how are you bringing money in the door? How are you attracting clients?
And I think
but it's all about
keep it simple.
Absolutely, fact finding and self-education. Right?
So what we want to leave with our wonderful people today who really, really want to do a business plan, and it will be simple. I promise you. The first one. What are the three biggest things, Steve, that you think we should give as our 3 tips for the business plan to start someone off?
You know, somebody who's in our network. You know, he has a very good question, and he builds websites. And the first thing he says to them is, why do you need that website?
Yes.
So I say to people, why are you in that business, right? What is it that it makes you passionate about what you do, and how are you going to do it? Because you can't just go and, you know, hang a sign and think, all of a sudden I'm in business. You have to really understand your business and become as proficient, as expert in what you do as possible. Number 2 is really create that nucleus of a business plan, right? You need to understand your product. You need to understand your customer. And the third part is looking at the financials, because that's the first thing that can really kill a business in its infancy, is knowing what revenue you have coming in and knowing what expenses you have to make and making sure that you can meet them.
Those are 3 good tips. Now, I work a bit different than you, because you are more of a financial guy and I'm more of a, you know. So what I tell people is, please ask your family count, husband, wife, mom, dad, whatever, is this a good idea? It may impact the wife, it may impact the husband. Say if my husband said to me, you know, I'm going to start a business, you know, Linda, you know, imagine I didn't have my own businesses, stay at home mom. Linda, it's going to impact us. We may have to sell our house. So before you even start doing the business plan per se, I'd do the family plan and say, you know, am my family happy about this? Absolutely. Have I got support from them? And then the next thing I would do, which is basically what you've said, you know, all those 3 things. But I'd look at the fact, you know, is this something I want to do for a long time? Is this a short-term thing? Because people get bored. So I'd be setting my goals on, you know, how long do I want to be in business? How long do I want to operate the business? So I go, you know, that are the couple of things I thought about when I was starting my business. A business plan can be simple. You've got to think about the financial. Do we type it out? Do we write it? Does it matter how do we have to make it look pretty?
Don't make it overly complicated.
Don't make it complicated.
I think you need to do what you're comfortable doing. Now, there's lots of tools you can get on the website. from any kind of financial institution to help you learn how to put together a basic business plan.
Are they free?
Yeah, absolutely,
free.
Right? They got an ulterior motive for doing it because they want to try and bring you into the bank. But
yes.
I think you've reached a couple of very important points. Any business, you need to look at the family and how it impacts with that. Right?
It will impact them.
You went through that. I went through that, and then when you start, and that's when I go back to the personal assets. You got to be very careful on how that business encumbers on that side of your family life and your family finances. You got to be very, very careful because it can cause other things to happen that you don't want to happen in your family life.
Well, I think we've covered quite a lot about the business plan. It's not difficult. You can keep it simple. Looking at the financials and the personal aspect are very important. And you can find the template for the business plan online anywhere. Or
just Google business plans.
Google.
It's amazing. There's so many tools out there.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve, for your time again. It's lovely having you. And we'll be back again next time with another video.
Great.